Hello, folks, and welcome to Bards and Books. Welcome to another LitRPG chat. This is episode 11, and we are doing NPCs by Drew Hayes on audiobook, as always. And as always, I'm joined by Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Doing pretty good.
Good, good. And this was a short one, so this is only 7 hours and 50 minutes on audiobook, narrated by Roger Wayne. Roger Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a new one for both of us. So I had heard about it maybe a little bit, through the grapevine, but yeah, didn't really know much. I heard it was LitRPG, so it's close enough. I mean, there's no stats in this one, right? We don't get anything like
no
that.
big stat blocks or anything like that.
Yeah, but
there is character growth.
There is absolutely. You got the classic, RPG elements.
Mm-hmm. Closer to D&D,
well, but no stats. So, a lot of people might actually really, really enjoy this one because a lot of people love all that stuff without the stats. Right? So if you enjoy that, then this series would be perfect for you, I'd say. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. Well, I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. Super enjoyable, very interesting, very humorous, and
oh yes.
And it's easy to get invested in, and it's short. Like, it was quick. So, what about you? How did you feel on this one?
I dug it a lot. Well, I actually play D&D, so it's kind of gets a lot of the aspects of D&D in this, and it's it's kind of funny hearing that kind of seeing it from the other side of the board per se. Doing like going from the NPC side, seeing how everything happens.
Yeah.
I dug it a lot.
And this is an ongoing series, so I think there's like 4 or 5 books out currently, and it's continuing on. So the series is called it's like a play on D&D. It's like spells, swords, and stealth. That's what it's called.
Yeah, because that's what the game's called in that universe. Right. Yeah.
So we'll keep it spoiler free for this, first a little while, and then we can get into some spoilers if we wish. But do you want to start? What did you think? Actually, no, I'm going to start.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because the prologue was kind of interesting because you get no context, and it's like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
And it was super short. So that was like, oh, cool, nice little primer. But then you get to the first chapter. It was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I guess in a way you say it starts off, the first chapter starts off completely different than the tone of the rest of the book.
Yeah.
You get peaks of what happens in the first chapter throughout the book, but you're like, oh, well, this is a completely different thing. It kind of shows you one side of the page, and you flip over it, it's a completely something different, Yeah. So yeah.
And it is heavy on the D&D vibes. I mean, it's like, I don't know if you could call this like somewhat of a satire on the game, or is it just humorous? What would you say?
I would say it's just kind of like, I guess, looking at it from the other side of the fence.
But this, I can say that, non-spoiler, this flips a lot of tropes on its head. It's very
lots of that. Yeah.
A lot of trope flipping, a lot of uniqueness, just so much unique concepts being played with. All that alone is enough to make me want to continue. Like, these are just such interesting, unique stuff. I haven't seen it done before anywhere.
This is always the funnest stories, is not like going a little bit away from the status quo, where you have like whatever. Basically, the trope is for D&D is like the human fighter, which is like the most boring character to play. Usually people's first D&D character is usually a human fighter or something like that, or human wizard, because people are boring and they go to what they're used to.
Or you got like your elves, your half elves.
Usually when you get into that point, people are getting a little bit more interested into the lore, They have a little bit more of a interest. But even then, like, those are pretty basic and boring.
I would definitely say this is like beginner people friendly. Like, this is
for sure,
like super, like anybody, not even for LitRPG, just for like fantasy, just for reading or listening in general. This is great for beginners. It's not like there are a few like key characters, and it's not
Yeah.
like you don't get bogged down with all these characters or like all this world building or anything like that. It's like it expands as it goes, but it's a very digestible pace, and nothing about it is just too much for anybody, beginner or otherwise.
Oh yeah, very
So,
light book. You don't have to know any like extended lore or anything like that. It's
mhm,
just yeah. You don't have to know D&D. You don't have to know
mhm,
Lord of the Rings or anything like that. I mean,
yeah.
it's very light.
I think that combined with the humor, because I love the humor in this book.
Hmm.
So I think this is like a perfect place for people to start with
Yeah.
either fantasy or lit RPG or anything in that vein.
And it's interesting too. It kind of keeps your mind focused on it.
Yeah,
What's gonna happen next, and little twists and turns, like things
yeah,
that like surprise you. It kind of goes into certain veins and then changes around.
yeah. It's trimmed down and enjoyable.
Yeah,
So, and it's short, like not even
yeah.
8 hours.
No,
So,
it's a quick one for us compared to
mhm,
like some of our books that we've been reading. It's like been like 50 plus hours, and it's just like let's do
yeah,
like a little light one.
yeah,
It's a great palate cleanser.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And there is more in the series, and it's ongoing. So I would say, yeah, I'd definitely be open to continuing on with the series.
Hmm.
Um, whether that's going to be immediately or down the road, we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, I thought it was solid, very
Hmm.
enjoyable. Um, what other non-spoiler stuff did I want to get out? Okay, let's talk about the narration. So the
Narration's a good
narrator,
one.
Roger Wayne. What did you think
Mm.
about the narration?
I think it was pretty good. I think
Mhm.
there's it didn't slip up on anything. Doing even the male characters and lady characters, he's does pretty good with that.
Mhm.
He doesn't have to change his voice all too much for it. He's not like doing crazy accents or anything like that. But
But it is noticeable, and
it
it's
is
like
noticeable.
it's
You can
it's
tell who he's talking.
yeah, it's
You
very
know.
distinct. He
Hmm.
gives like distinct voices to these characters, which is nice. You ne- you don't
Hmm.
even need to know who's talking. You can just tell by the voice. So
Definitely.
I actually had one nitpick about the narration. Like I thought it was
Mm.
great. I thought it was great. He has a great voice. He's has these distinct voices for these characters. Explains things well. Like it's not very dry. The
Mm.
narration. It doesn't like put you to sleep or anything. You know what I mean? So I thought it was great. It's just one little thing where parts where a character's yelling
Mm.
or trying to being loud or aggressive or something. I didn't like how he almost whispered those things, like
Oh.
a character. Did you pick up on that later where a character's like if somebody's yelling run, he would
Oh, he
say it
goes.
exactly like that, like run. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of a whisper yell.
Like he's recording in a library. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that you say it, I didn't notice it before, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But but it's like they kind of keep the same level of audio, but it's almost like, yeah, like like using the last of their breath to kind of say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have liked like I think in some other series I've read, they probably have this method of like going far away from the mic and then yelling at the top of their lungs, you know what I mean? To just make it more
Yeah.
believable.
It's almost like he
I
went
don't know.
close to the mic and whispered instead of going far away and
Yeah.
yelling.
That was just
Yeah.
a weird little nitpick that I have that I'm just like, "Oh, that was a weird choice."
Mm.
So that is the only little nitpick that I had for the narration.
He's doing pretty good other than that, though.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
instead of just like reading it like a librarian. It's like he's actually put some effort in. So I dig. I always dig that. It makes listening to audiobooks that much better of an experience. You
Mhm.
know.
Absolutely. Solid. What would you rate it? What are your thoughts? Non-spoiler thoughts before we get into
Yeah.
the the
I
more
mean,
good stuff.
I rate it up there. I think like four. I'm probably too generous in all my ratings because I love all books. All these
Mm,
RPGs, my favorite type of series. So I would still say 4.5. This is great. It's hard to like to say anything without like trying to get into spoilers because it is a shorter book. you can't really like
Yeah.
beat around the bush too much
Well,
without saying something,
like a lot of people don't even care about ratings. Like they just want to hear people talk about the book. But I was just kind of curious because I did notice you are a generous rater, especially
I
like
am.
when you were active on Goodreads. You gave
Mm-hmm.
everything either 5 or 4 stars. Did you ever give anything 3?
Usually I don't go on and rate them when I,
Mhm.
would give him a lower score. I could say, Mayor of Noobtown I thought was kind of like maybe like a 2.5, 3-star book. And
Mm.
I tried reading the second one, and it's just a struggle to get through some books. And
Okay.
a lot of those books that I would rate lower, I just kind of give up on. I go
Mhm.
like halfway through or 3/4 way through, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I doing?
Fair
So
enough.
I
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And so a lot of my ratings are books are like, oh, I really like this book, so I want to give it a rating.
that's fair.
And
Yeah,
then
that's good. Yeah, I think that's all we can say for spoilers. I mean,
it's
or for non-spoilers, I mean.
yeah.
So this is like I said, it's really short. We were actually contemplating whether to do this book alone or like the whole series, but you know, I think we're just gonna. There is some stuff to talk about. Thank you everybody who's watched up to this point, and if not, go read the book. Very
Yeah,
enjoyable
definitely
book.
read the book. I mean, it's short, easy, good palate cleanser in between,
Hmm.
other reads. You want to do something light, something like,
Yeah,
D&D kind of esque, without having a big stat blocks. Just kind of a nice,
yeah,
series to jump into. There's a lot of books out there that are tough to read and will really bog you down. And you're like, 50 hours. Do I want to put 50 hours into this? And just to see if I like it. This is
no, yeah,
nice, short, even cheap if you just wanted to pay for the audiobook. I think it's only like $9 or something like that.
yeah. No, this one
So
is well written, well
mhm.
narrated. It's solid book overall.
Yep.
So that's all we'll say. We'll get into spoilers now,
Mhm.
and this is where I wanted to jump in. I talked about the prologue, but the first chapter, dude,
Mhm.
where we get the D&D game,
Mhm.
and I just thought it was so hilarious how the way that they all die before even starting the quest.
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
It's so good.
Because of the mushrooms, it's like, oh, we just
Yeah.
drank ale. Oh, we're all dead. We didn't even start the quest yet.
Yeah, and it's very much I mean, he did warn his party. He's like, "Look, I want to do a more realistic game."
Hmm.
And but part of being a DM is you've got to kind of know the people you're playing with, right? If they're not
Yeah,
gonna play that way, you're gonna have to be a lot lighter for that. It's
yeah,
just part of being a DM. I understand what I'm not gonna knock on the guy being a DM. People wanted to play it that way. He's DMing. It's like the hardest thing to do in Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah.
It's the tough part. You're making
Hmm.
a game for other people to play. It's not the fun part of
It
D&D is being a dungeon master. I mean, it can be fun.
could be like some people
Some
enjoy that.
people really love it, but
Hmm.
it's like doing the hard part.
Yeah,
So he wants to run a game a certain way. It's tough to find people to do that. Uh, Usually, first game party wipes is not, first session party wipes is not the way to start that kind of stuff off.
mm.
Um, but
I guess yeah. He did keep saying he wants it to be more realistic, and the
yep,
version that they
he
have, they
warned.
mentioned they have this specific
Hmm.
version of
Spells and
their
sorcery.
version of D&D. Yeah,
Yeah,
they got a
yeah,
specific version that is a lot more realistic.
yeah.
So I
It's
think
like
a lot more is going to come into play with that version and the company that made that version
I think
of the
so
game,
too.
right?
Yeah,
Because it's just odd.
there's the connection there. There's a connection
There's
there.
this strong connection. It's tying into the
Mhm.
world, right? Like,
I do love the D&D aspect of it though, because I do play
mm,
D&D, and it
yeah,
was kind of like, oh yeah, I totally get what this is like. Oh, you got to roll for stealth, you got to roll for communication. You
hmm,
know, what is this guy communicating or whatever? It's like, oh, you see
yeah,
why he's raising his eyebrow. It's like, oh, what do you want to drink? Not like, oh, he wants to fight the party. And because I've played with some people who are like murder hobos, is what they call it, where it's like
yeah.
going to a town pick fights with everybody. I'm
And
gonna
just loot
stab this
them.
guy. It's like,
I
yeah,
just want to loot everybody.
yeah. What do we get for loot? It's like, I don't
Oh
know.
man.
Just murdered that random guy. He didn't have his wallet with him that day. Sorry.
Oh. And now all the
Yeah.
guards are after you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can't just press save before you enter it into a town in Skyrim, murder everybody, and restart.
I was gonna say, like, that's fun in Skyrim,
yeah,
but when you're like super high level.
yeah.
I remember playing Skyrim and like I got to the high, beat the whole game, got to such a high level. I just go in for fun sometimes and just like slay every single guard, and like they don't even die. You just walk around, everybody's attacking you, and your health doesn't even go down.
Oh yeah.
That was a lot of
tap everybody.
yeah,
Oh god.
yeah. But anyways, yeah, I like the introduction we get to the NPCs right after that first chapter.
That is such a good bit. That is such a good bit where it's like, they go is like, your characters are all dead. Take out your other character sheets. I told you to make new ones, so just in case, because I knew you guys were going to do this. And it was like right after that, it just goes into the bar where the NPCs are, where they described NPCs lightly, but they're just like, oh my god, these guys just fucking died.
These guys just collapsed. What did you put in that meat?
What did you? Yeah, what the heck happened? What'd you do? It's like I get that. It's like what happens, when you're playing a video game and your character dies. What do people do around? Like, oh well, what happened?
Yeah, again, it's just interesting how that game is tied into the NPC world, and
they don't talk about it too much throughout the book. You see
there's a lot of questions.
Pieces.
There's there's a lot of missing people. That's part of the thing that makes me want to continue and see what the heck is actually going on, because it seems like this version of the game they have, anybody who has that version, it seems like are they all tied into this world together? Because we know we had a whole bunch of other adventurers, right?
Yeah.
And we got that snippet at the end there of that other player group. Remember, she was rolling and got 3 critical ones or whatever.
Yeah.
So
because it's like multiple people were doing that same dungeon almost
at
at the
it's
same
like
time.
It's like, do they have the same version of the game, or is it all just tied?
Are they playing on the same day? Like, is it D&D day there? Or?
Lots
of kind of interesting like that. Yeah, that was kind of a cool bit too. I almost forgot about that. Where it's like there's like 4 or 5 parties all playing D&D together, like doing that same dungeon. Yeah, that's super interesting.
So maybe they all just have that version of the game. And I don't know. We'll have to. We have to continue on to see.
Definitely. So, Thistle the gnome, Gabrielle the noble lady.
Yes.
Mayor's daughter, Eric the town guard.
Yeah.
Grump the half orc, who's the bartender at the inn. And they notice these guys die, and they're like, well, they've got a missive from the king. We can't just toss him out, because they'll, people they're gonna get looked into, and the king will just wipe out our town if he realizes that these guys have died here even if it has nothing to do with us. He just likes to destroy towns, which is not the greatest king.
He just likes to kill people.
Yeah. They're like, no, it's our king. He just likes to kill towns. Like, maybe time for a riot here. Let's,
But
Mary Antoinette was bad.
You know what? This is something else that tied in. I got to bring it up now, because the king, like, he seems evil, but he was sending all the adventurers to the cave to get the bridge. Right? So he knew about it too. So the same thing that the wizard was talking about, how this is the bridge that connects our worlds to the other world.
Oh, you're jumping so far ahead.
I am. But like the king, I think it was mentioned that's why he's doing that, because he knows about this bridge too. That's what he wants.
Does he know about the bridge, or does he just know that it's powerful?
I think it was mentioned offhanded by Thistle that's why the king is employing all these adventurers to get the bridge for him, this thing for him. Once they got the bridge, it's like that's why the king is doing this mission. So the king has some
he has some
greater knowledge as well.
I do like how they've done his character, because he's an elven king. He's an elven king.
He's an elf. Okay.
Yeah, I know it doesn't seem like it, but it's like he's an elven king because his aide is a half elf, and usually it's like, oh, he's not like elves are like, oh, you're half elf. There, it's like, but he's the most loyal half elf to the king. so he's happy
Right.
about that.
Right.
So it's like, but interesting way to do an elven king. That's probably why you didn't think like, oh, he's an elf, but it's like because he's like he's a king that doesn't want to sit in his throne because it's uncomfortable. He sits in his
Mhm.
stool away from the throne that he tucks away when people are come to go see him. He'll sit in his throne. He doesn't
Yeah.
wear his crown because it's uncomfortable on his head because it was for a human king with a thicker skull, and it's like it hurts his nice hair and his head, so he doesn't want to wear it unless people come in to go see him, and he's got to
Yeah.
like. So that's this whole thing.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's like it's an interesting way of doing an elven king. And usually you see it in like Lord of the Rings, and they're all like, "Oh, one with the forest."
All
And
posh.
yeah, all super posh, or like one with the trees, and they're hugging
Yeah. Yeah.
trees, or
Yeah.
like they're very like pompous in that way. And this one, he's
Yeah.
just kind of like,
Yeah.
probably eats with his hands or something like that. He's like, give me that special bridge or whatever. He's
Yeah.
very send these guys, send the lowest adventurers. They're fodder for me.
Mhm. But
That
like
kind of thing.
everything is flipped on its head here.
Oh yeah.
Even when they were deciding who's going to be which class,
Mm-hmm.
it's like they're like, oh, should we do
They
the
started
typical
one way.
thing? And
They
then it's like,
started typical, right?
yeah,
They're
and
like,
then it's
oh,
like, well,
I wear the armor, so I guess I'll be the paladin,
yeah,
and you're a half orc, so I guess you're the
yeah,
barbarian,
yeah,
and the lady's like, I've done some schooling, so I guess I'll be the wizard.
yeah. But then
And
it just all got flipped.
basically,
Right?
what happened was they just kind of, when they fought it out, the half orc had the magic, tome on hand, and he's just like,
Mhm.
well, alakazam,
Yeah.
abracadabra.
Cool portrayal of goblins too. I
I
thought it
think so
was
too.
so.
I really dug what they did there.
Yeah, yeah.
I do wish he described the goblin camp a little bit more.
Mm.
This is
Mhm.
one of the things. It's a lighter book, so they didn't really get into the
Yeah.
nitty gritty. Didn't do a lot of world building,
Mhm.
almost to the degree where I'm kind of like, I want to know more about the world building. I
Yeah.
want to hear like what they living in huts. Is there a big campfire? Is it all
Yeah.
lean-tos? It seems like a
Mhm.
big town. They got a lot of goblins there apparently. They're stacking up tons of bodies. It must be a
Yeah.
massive goblin town. Like, is
Yeah.
there tons of buildings around? Is it like just huts? Are they sleeping in a pile?
You wanted
You
to know
know?
more about the
Oh
goblins,
yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're very interesting goblins.
They were, but what was hilarious is how Gabrielle's relationship with them. It's like, they
Yeah,
come by sometimes to, kidnap me, and I
yeah.
just go with them.
I just get kidnapped, and sometimes they'll like they give me enough time to go get some books for me to read,
Yeah.
and oh, they didn't bring my favorite horse,
Oh, that's
stuff
hilarious.
like that. It's like
Yeah.
the poor town guard guy's like, I've like wasted stood up for like 30 hours to protect you because the goblins were getting close.
Yeah.
you know,
Oh
my
man.
whole life I've been like trying to keep the goblins away, and they keep taking you away, and I feel like I'm failing at my job, but you're just like having a great time. It's a lot of character design like that, where it's like, you know, character looks one way, but acts a different way.
Mm,
And at the
yeah.
end, it's like um, the person who's supposed to be the rogue, the what's his name, Thistle. He said gnome. He's kind of like not handsome. He's a bit of a, he was a henchman for a while. Ends up being the paladin,
Yeah.
and because he's the only one that prays to a god, he prays to the henchman god,
Yeah.
and becomes a paladin from that, which is like a crazy flip because he starts off as a henchman. He's like a kind of a broody guy. He's like, oh, let's rob these adventurers that are passed out from drinking. No, they're
Mm,
dead.
mm,
And then he starts doing all this heroic stuff.
yeah. And I love how the half orc is the wizard.
Very much like a wizard's brick and just chucks a rock. I drink a lot of mead. Got the mead here today.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I have green tea.
Green tea. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. You're a paladin. Can't drink alcohol.
I would not be the paladin, I'll tell you that much. I'd probably be like a rogue or something.
I could see that.
Yeah, so they get to the adventurers. They decide to do the adventurers tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the demons attack again.
I do wish they did a little bit more background on the town. It
Hmm.
seemed kind of interesting, especially even the the tournament, like I really wish they dig more into the tournament. They did all this stuff for the tournament. They did all this practicing for this tournament, and I feel like, you know,
You
because the
wanted
demons
more, huh?
attack. Yeah, I wanted more of that.
You
They did the
wanted
whole thing.
more. You
I
wanted
wanted
some
more
epic.
tournament.
Yeah, you wanted some epic world building from here. You wanted a little more.
Well,
I
a
see
little
that.
world building. I wanted more of the tournament. They did all this stuff for the tournament, and then they kind
Yeah.
of got ruined by the demons. But it's like
Yeah.
they did one thing from the tournament.
Yeah.
It's like
I mean,
tournament arc. Tournament arc. Yeah.
maybe some of the setting could have been might have been a little difficult for me to picture.
I get
But
it's a smaller book though. I get
yeah,
it.
but I
You
like
know.
the pace. I like the pace, the quick kind of pace.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No.
short. You got to like cram in some stuff here, but
I think that's fair enough.
it worked. I mean, it worked.
We're just so used to books that are like 50 hours long that are like, you know,
Yeah.
the grain of wood on the seat that, you know,
Yeah.
there was a
Yeah, the
knot in my
texture.
table, you know. It's like, yeah, you know, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's enough
No,
world
we are.
building. There's enough world building for the size of the book, and I agree with that. It's like there's just some parts where it's like, okay, well, maybe second demon attack could be in the next book, and you could do a tournament arc for the end of this book. But he had a theme that he wanted to get to.
Yeah.
I think he could have done this out to be a 15-hour book, and
15 hour, yeah.
would have been okay with that if he stretched it out a little bit.
Stretch it out a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's personal preference, you know.
Yeah.
I liked what his story is. I liked that it was quick, but also I think it could have gone
But
for
you know
like
what?
5 hours.
But you know what? I think all these cool concepts just trump any of the these nitpicks that we have. I think
Oh yeah,
he's just playing with some really cool stuff. Even like the gems, how they're collecting these big gems and the demons are popping out of those gems.
Yeah,
Right? That was so cool.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I like how it's like that. You see, maybe you don't have the box growth where it's like, oh, this stat block's grown, this stat block's grown. You can really tell that the characters kind of grow into their classes. Where they're like the rogue character, which is a Eric, the town guard, becomes the rogue. He starts like noticing, like before when he's got a great hearing and great vision. Like he could hear things from farther away, but he's putting it. He's like, oh, it's just a bush, you know, rumbling in the bush or whatever. And it's like, not paying attention to that. Now it's like he starts to pick up on those things, the smaller things, like a rogue would, and he kind of grows into that position.
Yeah.
Where in the tournament, he's the one who spots a little shine on a cart going by, and he's like, oh, what's that? I kind of recognize that. And he uses this, starts building up those rogue skills and figures it out. I really dig that kind of growth. It's not like in your face, this percent he's grown up, this percent, you know, or he's gained this skill, and this is this,
subtle.
you know.
It's subtle. Like I said, no info dumps, no stat updates,
no title blocks.
Well. Yeah,
I think so too.
And Gabrielle, it's funny how Gabrielle is the barbarian.
Barbarian,
she's a barbarian. She's got like this berserker rage at random times, you know.
And there's a lot of like stuff like that. There's little skills that, you know, if you've played D&D, you know, it's like she kind of goes into this, when she's practicing with Eric, fighting, and she's losing. Then she goes into a rage, which is what a skill that barbarians use in D&D. Is they go into rage and they do extra damage, and you know, they kind of hit more, and that's part of their class. But they don't say she goes into a rage. She just kind of, they describe like, oh, you know, she just sees red and like, you know, attacks Eric, and you see the horror on his face, like, oh my god, she's gonna fucking break my arm.
Yeah.
The last book we read, that He Who Fights His Monsters, where it's like in the middle of a fight, they give you like the whole like disability, blah 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 blah. They don't stop it. It's like, you know, just describe what's happening. You know,
a lot of time, like most of the time, I just gloss over all that. Like I don't even pay attention. It's like I'm not going to remember all this.
Yeah. So sometimes books will tell you like, hey, just skip ahead 30 seconds or a minute and a half if you don't want to hear this. Which, I mean, sometimes I want to listen to that stuff, and sometimes they do it too much. You know, it's like I don't need to hear it every 30 minutes to hear this guy's stats.
What did you think about the dungeon part? So when all the adventurers went in, they're getting like slaughtered basically, and these guys find
it's interesting. Like, you're the first adventurers to go here, and they're like, they give you the map, what they've what they have for their map. They're like, oh, it's been mapped up to the 7th ring or something like that. And it's like, well, this is like, how do they have it mapped to the 7th ring if we're the first people to go in here? Clearly, other people have gone in here and have mapped it to a certain point, and that's where they die. So they only have up to a certain amount.
Yeah.
But because this was a henchman before, and I guess he's worked in dungeons, he kind of knows that sometimes there could be secret passageways, and finds a henchman's secret passageway to get them to basically the end. They just skip it all, which is I think it's kind of funny. It's like, how are we going to deal with this terrible dungeon? It's like wall hacks.
And when they get into that room, and
the final room,
they fight Aldrin, right? The elf. Is he an elf? The elf wizard.
Yeah.
Right.
He's the elf wizard. He was like the head mage that was sent by the king in there first, and he gets to the end and actually starts the dungeon up because it was a dead dungeon before.
And finally, the prologue makes sense.
And finally, the prologue makes sense. Did you read? Did you understand the prologue before I told you to reread the prologue?
No, I didn't. I was thinking about like going back to it, but I didn't until you reminded me. I'm like, oh yeah, because I didn't. Because you're not going to get it when you first go through the book.
No.
Like, what is this random bit?
Yeah, there's like a random bit in the beginning, and you're like, okay, what's going on? And then I was like, I just kind of did a little touch up today before we started the video, and I'm like, oh, you should reread the prologue.
Yeah,
it's like I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Because after the whole book, it's like he doesn't come in till the very end of the book, but he gets talked about in the very beginning of the book.
Right.
And I didn't really make that connection until I reread it again.
Yeah, no, that was good. Good pickup. Good thing there. I thought it was hilarious how he's expecting that he's dealing with adventurers from the other world, but it's actually NPCs, and he ends up throwing the knife and it gets stuck. He's like, "What the heck?" And then they have a huge fight.
This special bridge, it blocks the powers of adventurers from the other world, and they're like, okay. And they just throw a knife, and it's like it hits him. It's like, oh, how did you get through my special abilities? It's like, and they eventually they end up using that bridge later. Let's go battle. It's quite interesting.
The battle was interesting. I think he turned into like this big reptile thing, or what was
something like that. Don't quote me on that. I kind of got a little lost in that section. That last battle kind of lost me a little bit. There's some interesting bits where he like gets a hold of the bridge. They just kind of like get a blast of like know the universe.
Yeah, like
all the numbers come around the screens, like 10 plus 10 fly.
Enlightenment.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then they get the bridge. They kill the dude, and they come out, and then they face the adventurers from chapter 1. The guys playing the game. I thought that was so cool. I'm like, what's gonna happen here?
Great way to top off the book.
Oh man,
great way to top off the book.
That ending is wild.
Because now they have the bridge.
They have the bridge. They killed off the characters from the other guys, but one they brought into their world. So they used the bridge.
They basically took the guys. But he's still in the real world.
Yeah, he's like his character is like a real character now in their world.
Yeah,
but in that world, the
adventure's been made like an NPC. Yeah,
it was odd because in that world, his die just exploded, and it's like, what the hell happened there?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Right.
I totally get that play. Like I've done D&D where it's like everybody's rolling like crap. It's like everybody's rolling 2s and 3s and 1s, and you're like, oh, you're charging the battle. Like, yeah, we're gonna kill this group of bad guys, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, 2, 1, critical fail, I'm knocked out, we've had those games, and I totally exactly what that was going on there. Like, oh my god, what's going on? Why can't I roll?
So that was because of the bridge?
Yeah, the bridge.
The bridge was making them all roll horribly.
Yeah, in the real world. So I wonder what the bridge looks like. Is the bridge an orb, or is it like a?
I think it's like an orb. Yeah, I pictured it as an orb. Yeah,
it'd be interesting if it's like a D20, and it could just kind of like as whatever side of the D20 he's holding, is what the cap of what they can roll.
Yeah. But I thought it was interesting how they got that character. So Tim, the guy from the other world who was rolling,
Mm-hmm.
his die exploded, and then his
Yes.
character, Tim is Score,
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
now a character in the NPC world in one of their. But he's got. It's funny because his personality is like the
Mm.
character that was playing him,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Imagine if they used the bridge on that guy who was just a murder hobo, right?
Yeah.
That would have not been good. So
Wouldn't have been good.
yeah.
But I guess because whatever that is, the bridge is kind of like giving them direction, giving Eric direction, like
Mm.
a Navi or something that's like, go over here. Hey,
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah, use it on this guy because he's noble and he
Mm-hmm.
actually cares about NPCs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cares about the world. He's down to like role play,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is a cool, like I kind of dig that at the end too, where it's like they're like in the real world, everybody else is left. It's just him and the GM, and he's like, or the GM is what they call it.
Mhm.
And they're like cleaning up, and he's like, well, can we still play?
Mm.
I really enjoyed that. I know they didn't enjoy it. They probably don't want to play again, but I still
I
want to
think I
play.
think they were saying like the two, Tim and
Mm.
the GM guy Russell. They were
Yeah.
saying how they want to look into it more or play another.
Yeah, they're gonna like go to the comic book store and get other people to play with them. So
Yeah, something
I
like that.
don't think that's the end of the story for Tim.
Yeah.
And they're gonna get the next book in the series, or
Mhm.
in the like the next dungeon book, to play the series more. So that might come in later.
Mhm.
It might come into book 2.
Yeah.
Where they come back in. I like that 2 aspects. I mean, they don't really do too much on the real life D&D side. The whatever it was called, so sorcery and
Spells, swords, and stealth.
yes, stealth, spell, swords, and stealth. They don't go too much on that side. They mainly stay on the NPC world.
NPC world. Yeah.
Hmm. But
Yeah.
I dig that little kind of like aspect. And I
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure in the beginning when you first read it. You're like, okay, what is this going to be?
Mhm.
Uh, and it's just kind of like a side note. Like they are NPCs.
Yeah.
That's not like their world. It's like this is NPC world. I
You know,
really
it's
dig how they
funny.
did that.
I don't know why I was expecting like these characters, these NPC characters, to have maybe a little bit of different kind of dialogue. Like
Mm.
like when you talk to an NPC, you can choose what the reply or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then
I
they
figured they
be
might
more
have like,
limited.
yeah, my responses are limited or like
Yeah,
repeating statements or whatever.
I get it. Like that
Yeah,
whole like, yeah,
yeah.
they only have like 4 answers. It's like, have you seen the fair?
It could, yeah,
Have
it
you
could have
seen the
been
fair? Just
probably would have been
continuously.
more hilarious.
I sure hope the king isn't corrupt
Yeah,
and stuff like that. They just keep saying the same stuff over and over
giving
again.
like little
Oh,
hints
yeah,
just
yeah.
randomly.
Maybe we'll meet
Anyways,
an NPC character that's just like says the same thing over and over again. That'd be a kind of interesting character that I might have in there. Like, oh, what's wrong with
maybe
it? What's wrong with this guy?
yeah, maybe we'll get that. Maybe we'll get a little snippet of that in the later books.
Yeah,
But anyways, we're coming up to the end, so they
yeah.
got this bridge, but there are multiple pieces. There are other pieces
Mm.
of this bridge, and I think they're going to go and collect those now, right?
Yeah, that's kind of they haven't been told, like the god hasn't sent them off to go get them, or nobody's told them to go get them, but Eric's kind of like, I kind of think we should go and find these other pieces.
Hmm.
He's the one who's holding the current piece right now,
Mhm.
and he's just like, yeah, let's go find more. That's kind of their
And
ending.
that's
Yeah.
it. So
They take Tim a score with them, and they're
taking
going on
Tim's
an
score.
adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is he a paladin? What is he?
he's a knight.
He's a knight. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's cool and definitely like solid. I enjoyed it a great deal and definitely wanted to continue the series.
It's a
So,
great, even just a standard RPG style novel.
are we going to continue it immediately? I think we've decided that we are jumping into another series now, right? So we
Yeah,
are going to start Everybody Loves Large Chests by
Morningwood.
Morningwood.
Yeah.
Book 1, Morningwood.
Mhm.
Finally. We've been dying to get back to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
I think this is the first book that I kind of set Usman off on the
Yes,
LitRPG.
that was the very first LitRPG thing I listened to, and I absolutely loved it. Ever since then, I've been dying to, ever since we started this segment, I've been dying to read that and
Yeah.
talk about it on here.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun. And it is narrated by Jeff Hayes, our
Yep.
favorite audiobook narrator currently. So
Yeah.
obviously, comments reign supreme. Suggestions from you guys, the audience, reign supreme. So if you suggest us, if you comment for us to continue with this, we will absolutely get back to this a whole lot sooner. So
Hmm.
obviously, you guys can vote on what you want us to read or listen to, and that'll definitely be prioritized. But yeah, up next is Morningwood, and
Yeah. It's a
you
great series. If nobody's ever heard of it, it's got a lot more adult themes. It's got a lot more dark themes.
vulgar humor, definitely
Mm.
vulgar humor, but it's super interesting, and I love it. So I can't wait to get back to that.
And just Jeff Hayes is just awesome. He's just an
Absolutely,
awesome narrator, and that just makes the whole thing.
yeah.
So,
So that is up next.
mhm.
Everybody, thank you for tuning into this, and we will catch you next time on Leveling Up.